While Trevor Lawrence is the best player in Jacksonville, I'm going to tell you who will be the biggest indicator of who's successful. It's Travis Etienne. In just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are right here with me on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We always thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of said podcast that you can actually find over on our YouTube page. That is Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you tap in, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and then hit the bell so that you receive notifications each and every time we drop an episode. Also, wherever you get your audio podcast, wherever that is, make sure you tap in every single day at that location to ensure that you will not miss an episode of Locked On Jaguars. And shout out to the everydayers for joining us. And you can be an everydayer too. All you got to do is join us every single day, and we'll call you an everydayer as well. Good show today. We're going to talk about, I'm going to give you a definition, right? The definition in sports of a catalyst, right? A catalyst is a resource to enhance positive change, enabling outcomes to be achieved with less energy or in a faster way, right? So that's kind of a scientific thing, and we're going to use that and sort of put it as an analogy and put it into sports. It's the guy that if you watch them, they're the indicator that things are going well and that things are going to be easier and get things done. Doesn't mean he's the best player, right? The best player on the team is Trevor Lawrence. Hopefully, if Trevor Lawrence isn't the best player this year, then we got bigger problems that we need to discuss. But I'm going to talk about Travis Etienne. All right. So there is a few in-betweens. Are the Jaguars between mediocre and good? That's the thing that we're going to end up finding out. And we're going to use a gauge, and I'm going to tell you, we're going to try to make. We're not going to really teleport to the future, but what we're going to do is take a chance and say, okay, we're in week 10 or 12, and this is the thing that's going on. This is one of the things you're going to look for. Without looking at the scoreboard, without looking at the standings, we're going to actually be able to tell how things are going and who are we going to watch. I think the guy that you have to watch to see if that is the case, I think it is going to be Travis Etienne. All right. So the running back is an indicator that everything that this team wants to do from a football standpoint is working. Case in point, last year, Travis Etienne probably had the least amount of yards after contact and probably was hit faster than anybody. I saw a graphic somewhere where that was actually the case, where Travis Etienne was the guy who, once he got the ball, there was the least amount of time between the time that he got the ball and contact, and there was nobody that actually had it worse than him in the entire NFL. One of the indicators is going to be that doesn't happen, right? If that's still happening, then that means they have the same problems they had last year and that they won't be able to sustain long-term and do the things they want to do and have the success they want to have. But where we're going to start, I'm going to just start and tell you right now, I anticipate this year that Travis Etienne is going to be a huge, huge factor for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That is a prediction that I'm basing on a number of things that I'm about to get into here in segment 1 and 2, and I'll let you know that I really do have I have an idea and I have a thought that this kid is going to actually have a big time year and have a huge effect on the Jacksonville Jaguars season. Why is that so important? Everybody talks about running the football and devaluing running backs. So why am I sitting here saying that if he is having a big year, it's going to indicate that the Jacksonville Jaguars are having a successful season? Because one of the things that can help him have a big year on the ground is the passing game. And if he is if they're creating big boxes for him, if the passing games or creating running lanes for him. All of those things will enable him to then allow the Jacksonville Jaguars to do what good teams do, and that is run the football when you need to run the football. You got to run the football 2 times. You got to run it when you need to and when you want to. When you want to and when you have to, right? That's basically one of the things that we've always said, that you have to run the ball when you want to and when you have to. Too many times in the past, especially over the last couple of seasons, the Jaguars have really bogged down in short yardage, and they had to go for it a lot on 4th down, or they had to throw the ball on 4th down, and those things tend to lead to mistakes happening. Too many times in the past, the Jacksonville Jaguars couldn't get the ball in the end zone in the red zone because they were too busy trying to throw the ball and get cute because they could not run the ball. Too many times in the recent past, the Jacksonville Jaguars have had to throw the ball horizontally as opposed to throwing the ball vertically because they didn't have time to block. And another reason they were doing it, and folks may not really want to understand this part of it, but sometimes when a team has a short, quick passing game and they throw the ball in the flat and they throw the ball quickly to wide receivers and kick returners and running backs like Travis Etienne, they do that because they're trying to have a running game. They're trying to get 3 and 4 yards per play just so they can keep drives going, and they know that they can't get that in the running game just like everyone else. So therefore, an indicator and a catalyst for this team, if you just like not looking at the scoreboard, or if someone drops you in on week 10 and they don't give you the standings, one thing that will tell you if you watch the Jaguars, whether or not they're being successful or not, is if they're going to be able to run the ball, and if Travis Etienne is out there being a dude that has 18 to 22 touches a game, or at least 16 to 22 touches a game when mixing in the passing game and the running game. The prediction that I'm going to make is that is exactly what's going to happen. I think Travis Etienne is going to have a huge, huge season. And if he has a huge season, that would be an indicator that Trevor Lawrence is having a huge, huge season. And if they have a huge season together, we'll look back at the draft at 2020 and look at those 2 first-round picks. Both guys have a 5th-year option, and Trevor will probably have an extension by that time. That's when we'll be able to look at that scenario and say, it worked. It worked. And that's when you'll probably see Travis Etienne get maybe a 2-year extension on top of the 5th-year option that he already has. So I really think he's going to have a huge, huge season and a huge impact, and he could have a huge impact. Now, if he doesn't have a big year, that will also have a huge impact on this team. But I'm going to get into that in segment 2, and I'm going to tell you exactly why I think Travis Etienne is going to have a big year, and a lot of it has to do with the way his body looks right now. And I know, I ain't going to get caught up too much talking about people that's running around in shorts, but I will tell you that he looks ready to go. Physically, he looks big, he looks confident, and he now looks like that dude that knows exactly what he's supposed to be doing and knows exactly where he's supposed to be going. Fred Taylor, that happened to Fred, but it happened to Fred a little bit quicker. Fred, the first maybe 4 or 5 games of his career, Fred looked like he was just running just to run, and then things started to slow down for him, and he tried to figure it out. But Fred also was running behind a very, very good line, and so did Maurice Jones-Drew. I don't think Travis Etienne has had a very good run blocking line. I just don't. And I don't want to sit here and say that they've been absolutely horrific, but they have been horrific when they needed to be. In short yardage, late in games, controlling the clock, that's when and then you want the running back to open things up for Trevor Lawrence. So I'm going to tell you all about that here in just a second in segment 2 as we keep going here on Locked On Jaguars. I have to let you know about today's sponsor, which is eBay Motors. We talk football, and we talking cars, and we talking the love for our machines. That means passion, drive, and patience, right? The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Segment number 2 here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day, and we thank you for always making us your first listen. Talking about running backs, talking about bold prediction that I'm going to make that Travis Etienne is going to have a big season. If that happens, it will be, in my opinion, the biggest. It's not going to be the biggest reason. That would obviously probably be the fact that the offensive line is playing well. But an indicator that this team is going where we all want them to go eventually, or they're getting closer to doing that, and they're getting away from mediocrity, which that's where they are right now, whether you want to realize the Jaguars over the last 2 years, and we're only going back 2 years, because that's where like the new life began, right? With the Jaguars 2 years ago. And in those 2 years, they are 9-8 in 1 year and 10-9 in the other. So that's 19-17. That's like one game above actually being a 500 team. So I will call them a very, very mediocre team. We'll get into that in just a second. But that's not where they want to be. The Jaguars actually want to be better than mediocre. And in order to do that, there's some things that teams that ascend above mediocrity, there's some things that they do. And one of those things is run the football. They run the football. Now, you can be a team that runs the football for different reasons. That you can have a dominating offensive line and maybe running the football is all you can do, and you have a challenge passing the football. You can run the football situationally based on the fact that your passing game is so lethal and the lanes and the gaps are so big that all you need to do is get you a guy that's a one-cut runner who can hit downhill, and you can have an adequate 4.2, 4.3 yards per carry in the running game. And that's all you need if you're a passing team, right? But you can also be the type of team that can be super, super dominant in the run game because of your scheme, your style, and the totality of the talent that you have on the team, along with good, solid quarterback play. Look no further than the Miami Dolphins. Now, I'm going to use them as an example. One, because that's the opening opponent for the season, right? And two, because their running game is absolutely lethal, with a caveat. It ain't lethal against great teams. And that's the difference. And that's what I'm talking about now. Being able to run not only when you want to, but being able to run when you need to. When the Dolphins had really, really good teams, they were able to hit some plays because they were very, very explosive with their running backs. I mean, they got 3 guys. They probably got 4 now. They drafted Jalen Wright, but they had Devin Etienne, and they had Raheem Mostert. They got another dude down there too. They got from San Francisco a couple of years ago. The thing is, man, that they basically had a damn track team running the football. All guys that fit the system, all guys that are one-cut guys. I also give them credit too for identifying the type of player that matches their system, and they go in and they lean into that all the time. They get really fast guys that are one-cut runners and know how to hit the hole and go. None of them are really power backs. They're not really power backs. And maybe at some point that's going to bite them a little bit because they have to move around on that offensive line. So it'll be one of the most interesting things about week 1, and we ain't trying to do a preview of it, is this. The Jaguars defensive line that has been revamped and reschemed up with Ryan Nielsen against the Miami Dolphins' vaunted running attack with all of those explosive players. So it's going to be a very, very big challenge. I also want the challenge to be the Jaguars running game being a problem for other teams. I do. I want, the Jaguars have had their share of 1,000-yard rushers from James Robinson to Leonard Fournette. In the last 8-9 years, they've had those guys. And Travis Etienne has gone over 1,000 yards 2 years in a row. But it's not just about looking at the stats and looking at the raw numbers when it comes to that. For me, it's very telling that when teams get in the red zone, if they can't punch it in because they don't. Now they went out and got Tank Bigsby. Tank just had a bunch of bad luck, man. I feel like I have to say this every single time. It's almost like can't get right. It's just that for some reason he was trying too hard. Everything happened last year that really didn't help him. I think he looks improved and things have slowed down for him, and he's trying to work through it. So I think that's a plus. They still have Dearness Johnson as well. The key to all of this is Travis Etienne, and that's what we're talking about today. He is bigger, thicker, calmer. He looks more mature as a player. And I caution again, they're in shorts, but he still just looks like a dude that is ready to bust out and have a big, big year. I think he's also happy that they acquired a couple of offensive linemen, including Mitch Morse at center. I think he's happy also that they're getting guys back like Cooper Hodges. I just think with Brandon Sheriff and Ezra Cleveland, I think the competition level is going up. Anton Harrison is a star waiting to happen, and Cam Robinson, as far as we know, is doing everything the right way, and he'll be available this year at the start of the season for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they also still have Walker Little, a guy that has some value around the NFL, and we just have to wait and see whether or not he can translate and make that value into some interesting playing time for the Jaguars so he can help the Jags. But all of that stuff will come together, and you'll know, and the indicator will be that Travis Etienne is having a big year. Trevor Lawrence is going to improve and going to play better. The outside weapons have improved, and they have gotten better. I cannot wait for the Jaguars to have a lead at the end of the third quarter or a lead in the fourth quarter, and the other team is huffing and puffing, and the Jaguars line up. This is going to be a thing of beauty to me if the Jaguars get the ball on their own 25-yard line, and they line up and they go 14 plays, 75 yards, and they're all runs, and they punch it in to the end zone. That will tell me that they got hind parts. And if you haven't heard this podcast before, hind parts to me is the ability to get in the trenches and get dirty and knock people over. And its hind parts is also being in the trenches on the other side of the ball, getting down with it, getting dirty, and keeping people from knocking you over and knocking you off the ball. A long time ago, Hall of Famer Tony Baselli told me the best part of the game is late in the game when they know you're going to run it and the offensive lineman breaking out of the huddle. He says you can tell when the offensive linemen break the huddle and they do a half sprint to the line, and you see their body language. They can't wait to say, line it up. We're about to run you over. Line it up. If the Jacksonville Jaguars get to that point with Travis Etienne, with his home run ability, with his ability to make people miss, with his ability to slip and slide in and out of holes, and they can get 4.5 yards to carry, let me tell you something. The blue sky opens up for what this team will be able to do. They haven't been able to do it against bad teams. If they do it against the bad teams that they play, which aren't that many, if they do it against the middle of the road mediocre teams, which is what they are now, and then they learn how to do it against the good or the better teams, and it can even do it against the great teams. I'll give you a perfect example. 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, when Chad Muma got hurt in the playoffs against the Jaguars, not Chad Muma, but Patrick Mahomes, and he had to lead the game. And Chad Muma was the quarterback. The Chiefs lined up and basically went 90 yards. They had maybe one or two passes. They gave the ball to Pacheco and McKinnon, and they drove down the Jaguars' throat. And you know what I mean. It was demoralizing. When the Eagles a couple of years ago in the rain, once Foley Fadokazi got hurt, and he was there by himself, and Devon Hamilton was out there by himself, or one of them got hurt and the other guy was out there, and the Eagles turned around and gave the ball to three journeyman running backs, and they were pounding the Jaguars into the dirt. It is the most demoralizing thing you can ever see. A couple of years ago, when the 49ers came in and got the opening kickoff and held the ball until there was a minute left to go in the first quarter, and at a 19-play, 84-yard drive, most consisting of ram battering runs, it demoralized this team. Still don't believe me that the catalyst of this team, or the thing that could be the biggest indicator, or can be the check engine light for this ball club, is the fact that if Travis Etienne is going off late in the third and fourth quarter, getting 4.5, 5 yards a chunk, do you now see how that scenario will allow you to expand your eyes and look around and realize that the Jaguars are a really, really good football team offensively? And that helps the defense also because you control the football. Segment number 3 is coming up. They're between mediocre and good. They are between mediocre and good. Which one are they closest to? I'll tell you that in just a second. But first, I have to tell you, if you're watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day, have to turn down the volume with all the shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels at part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, hang tight, man. We're going to get to segment 3, and I'm going to tell you why I think they lean closer to being mediocre than they are good. We'll do that in just a second. Okay, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. I am Tony Wiggins, once again, the host. And what we've talked about, man, we have talked an awful lot about Travis Etienne and the offensive line, but mainly how with Travis Etienne having a big year, the running game can really be that one thing that allows you to know that your team has arrived and they're ready to take that next step, because so many things around them can be affected by the running game, or so many things around them that are going well actually affect the running game. It's kind of like saying the same thing. It's almost like saying which comes first, chicken or the egg. Does a good running game beget success, or does success in other areas allow the running game to take off and be really, really good? Both can be true, but in this situation, that's why I said the first thing to do is look at the amount of success, look at the running game, and then if the running game is consistently working every week, then you'll know that's when, regardless of what the record is, you'll know that's when the Jaguars have really, really turned the corner, because all good teams are able to, even if they don't eat the whole clock up, and even if guys aren't going crazy. Look at the Rams, man, with that Keelan Williams kid, that young kid out there. You want to know why the Rams bumped their way into the bottom part of the playoffs, and why they were able to win more games than people thought? Their ability to run the football. That helps Puka Nacua, and that helps Cooper Kupp, and that helps the defense that were missing a whole bunch of parts from their years of winning championships, because they can control the football. This is football 101. Nothing new about this game has changed to the point where those things like that are no longer true. Those things are going to always be true when it comes to football, because that's just the way the game is played. The game is played about who can extend drives, who can control the clock, who can keep the other team at bay and keep the other team honest. And there's nothing better than a running game that can do that. Travis Etienne can open up Trevor Lawrence too. If they're running the ball the way I think they can run it, if Etienne ends up with 1,300 yards rushing and another 500 yards receiving, that's 800 yards or 400 yards receiving. Let's say 1,700. 1,700, maybe 12 rushing touchdowns and 3 touchdowns catching the ball. 1,500 yards, 1,700 combined yards. Do you realize the Jacksonville Jaguars will not be considered a mediocre team anymore? They will be considered a really good team. Right now, they're mediocre until they can prove that they can do it. I think they have the potential, with what you see from the players on the field, what you see with the guys, the additions that they've made, what you see with the players that they've drafted. I personally believe that they are on the way to turning the corner, to leaving the area of mediocre to the area of great. Now, conference has gotten a lot tougher. Division has gotten a lot tougher. A lot of better quarterback play than it was 2 years ago. So now, even if they have improved, what you're still going to see is you're going to see challenges. You're going to see challenges. Those challenges can be, I wouldn't say easily, but though it's easier to beat those challenges if you can control the line of scrimmage and your running back is talented enough to make guys miss. The running game is designed that if everybody does what they're supposed to do, there's always going to be one guy that's assigned to that running back. And it's just going to come down to whether or not he can tackle the running back, and whether the running back is able to shake him and force him to tackle him. That's just the way it is. And in this case, he has that wiggle. Now, there's some football players that's going to tackle you regardless. Luke Kuechly and Ray Lewis, most of the time, 90% of the time, they get their hands on you, it was going to be over. And there's still some guys, Roquan Smith is like that now. There's just some guys you ain't going to be able to do that to if you get one-on-one with them in space. Every now and then you will, but for the most part, it's not going to work. That is not the case with a lot of the teams around the NFL. When these running backs are put in those one-on-one situations, the Bijan Robinsons of the world, and of course Christian McCaffrey. There are just a lot of these guys that are very, very good at what they do, and they are very, very good at what they do. And when they get put in a certain position, they're going to get it done. Okay. My prediction is they will be, by the time the end of the year comes, they'll be closer to being good or very good than they will be mediocre. And if they aren't, it's still going to fall back on the offensive line still not having guys that are actually good enough to move it. I think Etienne is good. He's got 1,000 yards in 2 years with I think what is average at best, or maybe even poor offensive line play. I just think that everything is set up for them to be really, really good in the running game this year, because they've been okay at it, and they've had a bad offensive line, and I think they've improved enough that he's going to have a big year. So I hope you enjoyed the fact that I think Travis Etienne is going to be the catalyst and the key indicator of whether or not this team has moved from mediocre to good. I'm going to start them at mediocre, but I think eventually they'll be a good team. I'm going to let you know also, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Y'all have a nice weekend, man. Thanks for tuning in to a little bit of a late weekend edition of the show, but had some things going on early today, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to give you guys the attention that you really, really needed. And hopefully you enjoyed this weekend. I will be Monday. I think I'm going to, I just confirmed, but you saw me doing some stuff. I think I'm going to be able to talk to Jarian Jones next week, and maybe a couple of other rookies on Monday and Tuesday. Probably by Tuesday or Wednesday, you'll start hearing some of those interviews. But I'm going to go to OTAs on Monday or minicamp on Monday, and then I'll do the podcast at some point midday to give you an idea of exactly what I saw my first foray into minicamp this season. Until then, have a very, very nice weekend. You guys take care of each other. Continue to take care of each other, and I'll do the same here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. Thank you always for making us your first listen.